Good day, everyone. Welcome to the class. Welcome to PED433 class, Children's Literature. Today we are going to consider qualities of good children's literature texts and kind of children's literature. Welcome to the class. Literature refers to the study of works of art, which include drama, prose, poetry, and just like we examined the last time, we tried to see the definition of literature from the different perspectives, part of which is that literature refers to the works of art, drama, prose, and poetry as examples. Literature also includes oral tradition, the legends, the myths, stories from classical time during the non-literate period when stories were not documented, up to the recent time, the present age, where stories, folk tales, folklores, myths, and legends are being documented. Literature is an art. It is not because it is written, but because of the writing is from artistic point of view. It is from artists make use of presentation of idea is done from artistic point of view, artist transformation, and notion, as well as the use of language. All these are what makes children's literature generally unique. Having said that, let's look at children's literature. Like we did last week, we said children's literature are literature exclusively meant for children. And so children's literature refers mainly to stories, poetry, rhymes, folk tales, drama, myths, legends, and so on, which are meant for children, such as infant, toddlers, young adults, as the target audience. So children's literature as a concept is defined as literature that is meant for children or that is aimed at children. It is literature that involves ideas, relationships, language that are simple and can teach the child moral lessons. Children's literature denotes ideas related to stories. When we talk of literature, we talk about short stories, we talk about short poems, rhymes. You remember Tickle Tickle Little Star, that stuff, and folk tales about tortoise, folk tales about dog, folk tales about elephants, then short drama. All these are exclusively created for children and their target audience are children. So literature becomes literature for children if the heroes are children, if the theme and the plot as well as the language are simple and not too complex or not complex at all. Literature, as we know, teaches moral lessons with a view to establish the values of the society. So literature is a good avenue to inculcate into the child the values of the society, the norms, to expose the child to culture, to expose the child to what is acceptable within the society and what is unacceptable within the society. Children's literature is a range of books written for children, read by children, or at times written about children, or at times written by children. So children's literature is broadly defined as all books written for children. When we talk of all books, these exclude reference books that are not meant to be read in their entirety. So children's literature as a concept is defined as literature absolutely meant for children. So what are the qualities of good children's literature. Before we can say this is good children's literature, especially when we are talking about text or samples. So in choosing literature text, the teacher must check the following. In choosing literature text, you as a teacher, you must take note of the following. One, simplicity of the text. The text must be so simple, the plot must be simple, the language must be simple, and the language should be paramount in selecting literature text. When you want to select a literature text, language is an important tool to consider. The level of the student and the language must be equal. If not, comprehension of the text might be difficult for the pupils to do. Another point is consideration of folk tales from oral tradition. This is very important because this will expose the child to culture and tradition. So children's book contain many timeless stories that know no age boundaries. There are some folk tales, there are some stories that we were told when we were growing, and our children also have been told these stories, so it is passed from one generation to another. Timeless stories that has no age boundaries. Majority of our contemporary children's literature grew out of these traditional folk tales. So we must, when we are considering choice of textbooks, we also need to consider that this text that we are selecting must have oral tradition so that the children will grow up to value their culture and to value their tradition. Apart from this, another quality we need to consider is education of children warrant society best energies. Consequently, children's books are worthy of serious study in order to achieve educational philosophy. To achieve educational philosophy, we must put into consideration educational philosophy when we are choosing text in a literature class, so that text that we are going to choose will work in line towards the achievement of educational philosophy. Important, and as teachers we need to put them into consideration when choosing textbooks for our pupils, because it will encourage them and it will stimulate them. Having said that, let's look at kinds of children's literature. Children's literature is divided into short stories, short novels, poetry, drama, satire, folktales, myths, legend, fiction, and real-life situation. All these are kinds of children's literature. We have short stories, we have novels, we have poetry, we have drama, we have folktales, we have myths, we have legend. All these must focus on the children, must be exclusively meant for children, and they must aim at teaching moral, they must aim at making children to be acceptable adults and making children to know what is acceptable and what is not within the society, and also exposing the child to cultural values that the society holds in high esteem. So let us look at short story. What is short story? Short story is a kind of children's literature. Short story means account of past events or account of imaginary events. That means short story could be real, and at times it could be imaginary, it could be unreal. Examples include fable, drabble, anecdote. Examples include fable. So a short story usually deals with few characters and is not as lengthy as a novel. Short stories are short, very short, and then they depict events that will not be possible in real life. I've said that. I said it could be real, it could be imaginary. So short stories may be found in special collection, but they may appear from time to time in periodicals. They are usually restricted in their scope, that is, they are not too long. The characters are usually short, so short stories are very easy to manage. Another type is folk tales. Folk tales have unknown creator. That is, the creator of folk tales are not known. For example, the story of tortoise. Nobody can claim ownership to different stories of tortoise that we have had. The authors are unknown. So there are stories that are usually have animal characters that act as human beings. Remember tortoise stories, in some of them we will see tortoise as a man that has children, that has wife. In some we will see tortoise as a very smart person. In some we will see tortoise as somebody who as a thief who stole from his in-law, and so on and so forth and so forth. And so characters, there are animals character that act as man or as human being, and they endeavor to teach the reader a lesson. So folk tales teach the children and the reader, and teach the children and remind elders of what is proper and what is moral. So folk tales employ a wide variety of themes that are relevant to the social development of the child. It allows the child to experience adventure that they cannot attain in real life. So folk tales help the child to be exposed to some real life situation that he might find it difficult to really witness. Having said that, let's see what myth is all about. Myth means person, thing, event that is imaginary, fictions or invented. So it means myth is imaginary. It is not something that is real. So it refers to untrue story handed down from the olden times, from the olden days, especially concept or belief about early history of man, the explanation of natural events such as seasons. So myth is on realistic, on real stories stories of man having two heads, unrealistic stories that has been handed down from the olden time, especially concept that has to do with belief, that has to do with history, that has to do with man. A mythical story is usually an illustration of the origin of life and death, and the foundation and the fundamental pattern of nature. Myths are different from other children's literature as the characters are simple and the action is rooted in different world from that of the child. So the actions are rooted in recognizable human behavior, so we can recognize them. Legends are real. Legends are stories about heroes that are real. They are not imaginary like we have in myth. So, having said this, so far we have learned what literature and children's literature are. Also, we have identified qualities to look for when choosing children's literature books. As teachers, we need to guide ourselves with this in order to make literature class interesting for our pupils. So having said that, thanks for listening.